Let's bring in Tom Zoller, President and CEO of Imagine Exhibitions, and Dakota Wood, Senior Research Fellow at the Heritage Foundation and former strategist for the Marine Corps Special Operations Command. Tom, your signals kind of come in and out. We'll go to you first on this. The breaking news, the Wall Street Journal reporting that, in fact, a deep sea or the U.S. Navy acoustic detection system heard this implosion really right after they lost contact with the sub. What do you think about that?
Well, I think many people who are familiar with diving to that depth and have heard parts of the storyline over the course of the last week thought that if something would have happened catastrophically, it would have happened at that point. But I think everybody's been so hopeful this whole week because of the 5 lives that were lost. Nobody wanted to see that happen. So hearing that information, it makes a lot of sense because of where they were, but I'm not an expert. I'm just was holding out hope for all those passengers.
I know you're not an expert, Tom, but you have actually been down there on a different vessel. I wonder, as you're going down, can you give us a feel for what it's like? You've talked before about the immense pressure. Can you feel the pressure going down there, Tom? You know, if you're in an airplane, you can kind of feel the pressure in your ears. Can you feel the immense pressure bearing down on these vessels as you get closer to Titanic?
No, my sub is a mere submersible, so you're inside of a pressure sphere. So the pressure is the same as it is on the ground, as it is up on the surface as it is down below. There is no change in pressure, and the same would be. Although I'm not familiar with the Titan and all the technology, there would be no decompression. It's just the pressure you're dealing with. If you think about it, it's 6,000 pounds per square inch. So I was talking to my daughter about it and trying to explain what that means. And I was like, imagine that car, and then there's there's surrounding your whole body. That's every square inch with 6,000 pounds of pressure. It's almost unimaginable, the pressure that it is at that depth.
And Dakota Wood, to you now, what do you think about the possibility that they knew that something catastrophic had happened, or had this strong feeling that something catastrophic had happened on Sunday, shortly after this sub went into the water?
Yeah, I don't think we should be surprised that information is out there. I'm kind of surprised that it was released. People talk when they shouldn't. But going back to the Cold War, both sides, the Soviet Union and the United States, put out sensor arrays on the ocean floor to detect the movement of what would have been enemy submarines, from each other's perspective. The audience could look up SOSUS, SOSUS, to get an example of this sort of thing. But these are capabilities that you just don't want to talk about and reveal. So it shouldn't come as a surprise that an implosion or an explosion, the same kind of dynamic there, would be picked up by these extraordinarily sensitive sensors that are listening for the quietest creations invented by man and looking for the turn of screws, or maybe the internal workings of a water pump or something like that. That the Navy wouldn't have come out, or the intelligence community would have said that publicly. I completely understand that. The fact that it was conveyed reportedly to the on-scene commander, and then we still went ahead with this trying to find the sub, it's kind of hiding secrets, but you're also hoping against hope that sound wasn't what everybody expected it to be, and that you might find an intact crew capsule of some type. So it was one of those things you just had to do, but we shouldn't be surprised that this information's coming out.
Back to you, Tom Zoller. I'm wondering if, we believe this was milliseconds, this catastrophic implosion, milliseconds. The debris fields are pretty vast. As you drop into the abyss, Tom, and it gets darker and darker, it's just a free fall. Is that a fair assessment of what's happening as you go down?
Yeah, it's actually exactly what it's called, too. The idea is that you're conserving energy, and so the submersible tends to free fall in a spiral rotation as you descend to whatever depth that may be, and you're conserving your battery power for when you're on the ground. That's at the surface at whatever level you're at. It is incredibly dark, except obviously there's certain lights inside the capsule, but there's no light. The darkest of the dark, and it's quite cold. That was one of my fears for the guys down there this week was, I know that the water temperature down there is like 31 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's it, that it's not like there's insulation in that sub. You're trying to have this little amount of technology possible surrounding it. So you're as warm as the clothes you bring with you, and hypothermia, all kinds of things we were all worried about. I actually am, in a weird way, I guess a lot of us I've talked about in the community are happy to hear that it happened when it happened, because it meant that there was probably no pain, and it was an instant moment, and that these explorers died exploring. And I can't think of a more poetic end to PH's life or Stockton's life than to be at the site of the Titanic.
He talks about exploring, in the community. There were 46 people who have been down to the Titanic prior to this mission. And Dakota, what do you think of adventure exploring, adventure tourism? Is this put a hold on that? Does it end it? Does it damage it?
Well, I think there's a bit of a difference there. Exploration is just inherent in the human spirit. Testing the limits, going beyond, trying to see what's beyond the next hill. That's progress. It's how we discover new things. The tourism side, we've seen the opposite, where you have people that try to ascend Mount Everest who are just not prepared for that, but they paid the money, they got the clearance to go ahead and do that. And so you find yourself at 29,000 feet, very rarefied atmosphere, and physically not fit for that kind of thing. So the tourism piece can indeed go beyond too far, but I don't think it means the end of the industry. I think there'll be a lot of self-reflection. This was kind of an outlier event, and that this particular submersible was not subject to external review or certification. Other operators do those sorts of things. They have more safety features on them. So it's a risky adventure, but that's part of who we are as humans.
Did you know the risk, Tom? I know that, you talk about Shahzadi Dawood. He took his 19-year-old son, Suleiman. He must have felt there was some insurance, there was some safety built into this. Did you feel that this was a high-risk endeavor when you did it, Tom?
Well, for me, the submersibles that I dove in are called Mir 1 and Mir 2, and they're two submersibles that dive. They're deployed off of the same research vessel, and they are, I used the word earlier, battle tested. I mean, they've been to these depths hundreds of times. The pilots who I was with have been to the Titanic many, many times. PH Nargeolet, who was one of the people who died here, has been in this sub. So I guess for me, I was a complete novice. I was incredibly fortunate to be able to go out and dive the wreck. But when I was there on the ship, I would watch the sub go down each day and then come back each day, and it gave maybe for a novice a sense of security. But I when you get inside a submersible like that and you go to that depth, you have to know the risk. And I think that I didn't know the other gentleman and the son, but they were extremely successful people who probably took a lot of risks in their lives to get to the place they did, and they were explorers like we're talking about.
And I'm sure they did. Tom Zoller, Dakota Wood, gentlemen, thank you. We'll have more on this as the show goes on.
Great, thanks.